see all their pretty, beautiful, smiling faces, except for Dean. See some of Dean's guns. He needs to put those things away. I don't believe we are allowed to have open. It's not open carry here, right? It's not the
non-concealed carry.
Yeah, it's gonna say you can't do that, Dean. That's not how it rolls here. So, waiting for one buddy to show up here and get started, Mr. The Tony M on Twitter. A lot of you know of him, and Tony Moriello, somebody that really well known, writes about NHL. He'll write about anything that you ask him to write about, but he is a phenomenal NHL writer. And as we wait for him, we can go ahead and give a rundown of some of our experts, let you know what they are packing as far as their expertise is concerned. And we'll start off with Josh Moore, owner and editor of 4for4.com. Great website. You see him there, username 4for4_Josh. A really cool dude, great Twitter follow. Great Twitter follow, and just somebody that you definitely want to ask your fantasy football advice to. Taking a look at his bio here, he came to 4for4 in 2005 with a computer science background and extensive experience in both web development and writing. He was recognized as a top 5 most accurate expert in both 2010 and 2011 by Fantasy Pros. Next up, we have Mr. Johnny Rumford from 2mugsfantasyfootball.com. It's actually 2mugsff.com. A great site because it fuses two wonderful things together, Justin. Fantasy football and beer.
Two of the best things in the world. So
right.
What a great combo.
Yep, exactly. So just a great place to go and check out some fantasy football advice. Check out some beer reviews, some really cool stuff. And does a great podcast, the Two Mugs Fantasy Football Podcast, one of my favorite ones out there. It was actually a great one just this past week. Davis Maddock was on it, and the graphic that he actually made for Maddock, did you see that?
I saw that. That was
explicit
incredible.
Lyrics? Yeah, that was awesome. So we will be starting here momentarily. We've got one more buddy waiting to hop in here. Mr. Tony M., it is on you, my friend. We are waiting for you to join. Going on down here to Mr. Guns himself, Dean Shavelson, writer and on-air host at Roto Grinders. That picture harkens back to the days when he was actually stunt doubling for Bruce Banner in the Hulk movies. And you know what? Let me tell you something. This guy is every bit the piece of man muscle that you see in that photograph. He is a consistently ranked top 25 overall daily fantasy grinder, and he is putting his University of Central Florida radio TV degree to good use as an on-air Grinders Live co-host. Cal Spears, next up, you see him there, Grinders Cal. Congratulations, by the way, to you, my friend. You're going to Atlantis. Going to be a great time out there. Cool to see somebody as awesome for the industry managing to snag a seat like that. And best of luck to you out there. And you know what? I know even if you don't win, that's still got to be a killer time to get a full paid vacation like that and go out to, in my opinion, one of the coolest looking resort destinations in the world. Cal, of course, is the co-founder of Roto Grinders and Pocket Fives, and he has contributed greatly to the growth of daily fantasy sports, widely regarded as a top tournament player, and of course, just solidifying that fact with his recent run at Atlantis Glory. Next up, we've got Warren Kusoy. I was actually asking him before the show exactly how to pronounce his name. So we are experiencing a momentary difficulty here. Please stand with us for a second.
All right, so yeah, as we're moving down here, we've got Warren Kosoy. He's a Canadian daily fantasy sports player, goes by the alias BillsFan777A. His primary passions are the NHL and Toronto Raptors. Watches, plays all sports. We're moving down to next guy, Ryan Hodge, the owner of Project Roto, one of the best guys I interact with on Twitter. He's a co-owner and contributor there at ProjectRoto.com. He's known for his helpful fantasy advice on Twitter. He's always one of those guys around to help you out if you got some questions, and definitely keep going if you wanted to have any questions. Definitely hit him up on Twitter. He's always more than willing to help you out. We got John Paulson. He's the senior editor for 4 for 4. He was named the most accurate fantasy football expert by Fantasy Pros in 2010. Then was number 2 in 2011 and number 4 in 2012. So this guy knows his stuff, knows exactly what he's talking about. He was also the winner of the 2011 FF Librarian Fantasy Sports Trade Association Accuracy Challenge. So another guy over here, great expert, knows his stuff. Next we've got Nick Radicanu. He's the owner of Project Roto, where he regularly podcasts as a fantasy basketball contributor at Roto World as well. He's been featured in the New York Times, on RotoWire, XN Sports, and on Sirius XM Fantasy. Also, we have Mike Gallagher. He's a writer for Roto World. He's regarded as one of the top fantasy basketball authorities. He's also an unheralded NFL expert, contributes mainly to RotoWorld.com, but also writes for NBC and Yahoo Sports.
And he is the king of shot charts. Shot charts galore if you follow him on Twitter. He will let you know where every person is shooting from on the floor. And he is absolutely phenomenal when it comes to breaking down what's going to happen in basketball. Actually, one of my favorite follows during the NBA season because he's got it going on real time. I don't know off the top of my head exactly what his setup is like, but I remember him telling me before it essentially makes it so he can watch every single basketball game he wants. Moving on down here, next up we got Tony Moriello. Over at ProjectRoto.com, he is an expert in all daily fantasy sports. He works closely with Project Roto, but also contributes for Fantasy Pros, Roto Grinders, The Fake Hockey, and writes about NHL for DraftDay. So fits like a glove for him here. Very nice.
Yeah.
And that will round out our experts. So we will be starting here momentarily. We're going to get this show on the road. Going to be a great time here. And I've got a couple of strategies I'm actually very interested in checking out today. The first one is the late QB strategy. I think a lot of people are hearing a lot about this. It's basically a strategy where there are so many quarterbacks that are so close in value after you get through the first couple of them. You know, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, and then you get into a lot of guys that are interchangeable. So a lot of folks like to wait and wait and wait on quarterbacks. So it's always interesting to see who's going to pull the trigger first, and it always seems to happen. As soon as one person pulls the trigger, the run on quarterback starts. So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to give in first and take that sort of middle-of-the-pack quarterback earliest, and then see how the dominoes fall from there.
Yeah, it's always a panic situation where you see that second tier start to go down, and you got to make sure you get your guy before too late. So definitely one of my favorite things to look forward to also.
Yeah. The other one is the zero running back strategy, where I saw a lot of people on Twitter actually making fun of this, joking around about it, you know, a zero kicker strategy, zero wide receiver strategy, but it's not actually a zero running back strategy. You obviously have to start a running back. What it really is a strategy where you're not taking running backs early, or instead, especially in best ball PPR formats, you're focusing on high-end wide receivers, loading yourself up with tons of upside, and then you're basically banking on the fact that a lot of these lottery ticket running backs that you wouldn't normally be inserting into your lineup. Otherwise, if it's a season-long league and you have to pick who you're going to start, maybe you don't want to play Devonta Freeman this week. You know, maybe you don't want to play Bryce Brown or Jonathan Grimes this week. But all those guys are great players to take at the back end of a best ball draft and just have them available to you whenever they go off, because they're going to go off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks out of the year. You don't have to decide in best ball, though. You're just going to get each player's best performance in your lineup each week. So really cool to see how that works as well. And I actually have been getting a little sexy with it. And what I mean by that is I have actually been taking Demaryius Thomas far earlier than most people. I took him over Matt Forte in a draft the other day. It was quite controversial, but I still I love Demaryius this year. I think he's got one of the best opportunities around. I like him better than Calvin Johnson. I know a lot of people maybe are hesitant to go that far with him, but man, Demaryius, a physical specimen. He's still on the upside of his career. You've got Calvin Johnson, who has dealt with some nagging injuries and an unsure situation out there in Detroit, and the new coaching regime. It's interestingly enough a little more interested in running perhaps than previous coaching regimes. So you're not really sure if Mr. Happy Feet Stafford, what exactly is going to go on with him.
Yeah, and now they have a couple more options in Detroit with now 2 guys coming out of the backfield that can run and catch the ball, do a little bit of damage in the open field. So I feel like that offense probably won't rely quite as much on him. So I'm with you on that one. I like Demaryius Thomas as my top wide receiver as well.
Yep, and looks like we've got the first few picks off the board here, and everybody is being boring, and they're going with the chalk. Jamal Charles going to Tony first, Josh scooping up LaShawn McCoy, Matt Forte taking it down third, and Dean goes with Adrian Peterson. That's so boring, Dean. Come on now. Where's the Demaryius Thomas? Where's the Calvin Johnson? Roto Hobo going with DeMarco Murray. I actually saw him talking today on Twitter about how much he loved DeMarco Murray, and you know what, Ryan, if you want to go ahead and chime in with the chat and let people know exactly what that plan was. You said you had a pretty specific game plan that you went into these best ball type drafts with, and I remember DeMarco Murray being an integral part of that for you, so it would be really cool if you could lay that out. I'm actually going to go ahead and type it in the chat here in case you aren't listening. There's always the possibility you're not. And Eddie Lacy going next to Johnny Rumford. Eddie Lacy, of course, predicted to have a monster year. Has been creeping up the draft rankings all year. And after Eddie Lacy, apparently that was the imaginary line in the sand cutoff point for running backs, because we see Calvin Johnson, Demaryius Thomas, and then Jimmy Graham fly off the board here. And that's an extremely interesting Jimmy Graham pick. A lot of people are split as to whether or not he is a back end of the first-round talent or whether he's somebody that you potentially wait until the second round for a little bit later. And it's interesting to see Paulson going with Graham right off the bat like that. Would be nice to see him chime in and talk a little bit about why that is his guy there. My favorite pick of the first round so far has to be Nick, FT411 there, picking up Demaryius Thomas. I just absolutely love Demaryius Thomas. I'm so high on him this year in PPR formats. Basically like a wide receiver, running back, considering the types of looks he gets, just those quick little passes on the line of scrimmage from Peyton Manning, where it's all about him and his athletic ability to get the yards after catch.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible how elusive he is for a guy of his size. I mean, they throw those little screen passes, and it's one move, and he's gone. I don't know how many times we saw that last year, 60, 70 yards in blink of an eye. So I love him in that offense. He's definitely become the focal point there.
Yeah, and looks like we had Monty Ball and Dez Bryant closing out the round for Grinders Cow. So that's 2 very, very strong picks. I don't think anybody would be surprised considering what Noshan Moreno, who was easily a less talented, pure athlete than Monty Ball.
Yeah.
I can see Monty Ball easily moving into the top 5 running backs this year, given the type of season that Noshan Moreno had. Now Monty Ball is going to be looking at those boxes where there is essentially nobody, for 4 or 5 yards down the field once he breaks through that first line of defense, which is what happens a lot of time with the Peyton Manning wide receivers.
Yeah, and the best thing about Monty Ball is the fact that Peyton Manning does have so many weapons. So, Monty Ball is going to have a ton of open field this season to be running with all those wide receivers you're going to have to worry about on defense.
Yeah. Antonio Brown going to John Paulson early in the second round. Brown, a player that I've heard a lot of folks be low on this year, and I'm not exactly sure why. With Emmanuel Sanders out, he's really the lone target that Pittsburgh has left. There's nobody else with any proven talent. Marcus Wheaton is somebody who is absolutely going to have to step up this season for them, especially with Heath Miller. His health has been denigrating over the last few years, and I don't trust that Le'Veon Bell is an actual talent. I just don't. I feel like it was all situational opportunity for him last year, and I don't feel like this is a guy that, stacked up against some of the other top running backs in the league, is going to be able to get you very far. So I think that within a year or two, the Steelers, even if there's not an injury, are looking for another feature back just because Bell is not that guy that's going to take Steeler Nation back to the promised land.
Yeah, they're a team that's, everybody knows, of course, has been known forever as being the ground and pound type, but they're definitely airing it out more. And like you said, with Emmanuel Sanders gone, that's Antonio Brown's gig right there. He's definitely one of the top options in the entire league. As a Bengals fan, I hate to say it, but he's definitely in line for a big year.
Yeah, and isn't that crazy that Antonio Brown went ahead of A.J. Green and Julio Jones? That's phenomenal.
And Brandon Marshall.
I'm going to say it right now. The ball's on John Paulson. You know what? He's my new hero. I have John Paulson pajamas I'm wearing to bed tonight. That's absolutely crazy. I'm wondering if this isn't sort of a Jeff Mans taking Matt Forte first overall for effect type deal. And taking a look at A.J. Green, I love the start here. I'm not going to lie. My favorite start of anybody so far has to be Nick. FT 4-1 with Demaryius Thomas and A.J. Green. That's just a monster start to a fantasy team. I'm projecting a huge year for both of those players. Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson, not bad for Gallagher either. And frankly, all these guys with great picks here. Dean was the first to pull the trigger on a quarterback. I think Peyton Manning in the middle-ish, back-endish of the second round. I think that's a fair pick, considering he probably is going to be the number 1 overall fantasy quarterback this season. Losing Eric Decker is definitely going to hurt a little bit, but Emmanuel Sanders can cover a lot of that ground. Another player that a lot of people are divided on. It's going to be interesting to see where Emmanuel Sanders goes today. Rob Gronkowski, the oft-injured Rob Gronkowski, even right now, not a lock to start Week 1. And it's going to be tough to rely on him throughout the entire season. But if he's healthy, that's a steal at the back end of the second round.
Yeah, and it's almost really frustrating how the Patriots do with him each week, because I feel like they know more than they're letting on. And it's always, we'll see if he plays, we'll see if he doesn't play. But obviously when he's on the field, it's he and Jimmy Graham at tight end and everybody else.
All right. Let's go ahead and move along here and see who 4 for 4 Josh picked. Alshon Jeffrey, absolute monster. Pretty much standard that he's going 5 or 6 picks after Brandon Marshall. That's pretty much what I've seen around the entire industry consistently. What do you think? Do you think Alshon Jeffrey has the ability to surpass Brandon Marshall in that offense this year? Or do you think Marshall still has some better days ahead of him where Alshon Jeffrey's still going to be the 1B type player?
I still think that with Brandon Marshall being such a big red zone target, it seems that Jay Cutler really likes to target him near the goal line. So I think that adds to most of Brandon Marshall's value. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jeffrey end up with more yardage, but you got to anticipate that Marshall's going to get more chances at the end zone once they get down close.
Yeah, I think so as well. Jordy Nelson there at the end of the second round, love that pick. As I love Keenan Allen, that's a very strong start. Jamal Charles, Jordy Nelson, and Keenan Allen for Tony M. Great group of guys right there. And Keenan Allen's going to be really interesting because he kind of flew out of nowhere after the first 3 or 4 games last season, finished as, I believe, a top 10 overall wide receiver, and not somebody that anybody was talking about. A lot of times if there's going to be a breakout wide receiver, it's a Demaryius Thomas, young guy like that, or Julio Jones in his rookie year had a great rookie year. A.J. Green had a great rookie year, but everybody was talking about them before the season started. I feel like no one was talking about Keenan Allen, and I guess this is the year we find out if it was a fluke or if it was sustainable. And it's going to be interesting to see if Phillip Rivers also can kind of tag on to his elite performance that he had. If you remember, Phillip Rivers was an elite quarterback for like the first half of the year. Trailed off in the second half, but he was legitimately elite to start the season. And I think that just goes to further solidify the late round quarterback strategy. When you can pick up a guy like that late, especially in best ball, and you don't know who's going to come out firing and just be hot to start the season. Yeah,
and Keenan Allen was that guy, like you said. I was one person who I just kept thinking he was going to drop off, he wasn't going to keep it up, and he just was really consistent all the way down. And he's got to be the number 1 target there now for Phillip Rivers in an offense that loves to throw the ball. So definitely a great pickup there.
Yeah, same here. All right. Looking a little bit further into the third round, Julius Thomas, the third tight end off the board. Bills fan 777 taking down Drew Brees, second quarterback off the board. John Paulson got Aaron Rodgers at the end of the third round. Very solid, strong pick there. Zach Stacy, third round pick for Johnny Rumford. I like Stacy a lot this year. Absolutely love his chances. Marshawn Lynch going in the middle of the third round. That's sort of surprising considering what he's been, but a lot of people say he's on the wrong side of 30. He's so, disgruntled right now with the situation in Seattle. Might be retiring after this year. Almost certainly won't be back in Seattle regardless of what happens. Giovanni Bernard, to me, is the wild card pick of this round. Giovanni Bernard, I believe, has the upside to finish this season as a top 3 running back. Just really depends on the workload, how they use him in that offense. But as far as skill is concerned, you know it best from watching the Bengals on a week-in, week-out basis, being a fan. This guy's the real deal.
Oh, yeah. He's electrifying, like how Reggie Bush was in college in his first couple of years. Just there may not be a better player in the open field than Giovanni Bernard because he's fast, he's elusive, he's smart, and he's going to become more of a focal point in that offense this year. And good luck tackling him because he's small and fast, a little bit bigger than a Darren Sproles type, so he's in for a good year.
And Cal, with the first jab at Dean here, says, Dean, that would be a great 2013 non-PPR team. So, Dean, it's on you to respond here, brother. You better have a solid next round because Cal's coming at your throat a little bit. Absolutely love the Michael Floyd pick here in the 4th round by Johnny Rumford. That, to me, is a steal. I've heard reports out of Arizona now that Michael Floyd is the unquestioned #1 wide receiver now. Larry Fitzgerald is the #2. And a lot of people don't realize this. Carson Palmer finished out 2013 stronger than just about any quarterback in the league. I believe had the 2nd most passing yards over the second half of the season, next to only Peyton Manning. So if he can come back out and replicate that, and he certainly has the weapons to do so, Andre Ellington, Larry Fitzgerald, you've got Michael Floyd. You just have some phenomenal players around him right now. Something we haven't seen since the old Cincinnati days.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's an offense that's going to score some points. I mean, they love to air it out, and that just goes back to your whole take a quarterback late kind of strategy where you get Carson Palmer, who is going to put up numbers, and you can get him late. So definitely a lot of value to be had there.
Yep.
There's your boy, Nick Foles. I know you're a big fan of his this year.
I'm a fan of Nick Foles. Not the biggest fan in the 4th round. I think that might have been a little early from Gallagher, but you know what? Gallagher, my buddy, I'm going to say it right here, right now. He knows more than I do. So he knows what his team needs at this point. His team needs at this point Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson, great wide receivers. He's kind of good there for now. Giovanni Bernard, a great running back #1. Not a lot of running back #1 talent left on the board at this point is also what's something you have to keep in mind. You know, when you're looking for a running back #2, is there really a huge difference between some of these guys that are on the board right now and some of the guys you may get in the 6th, 7th, and 8th round? And so that's kind of a wasted pick if you feel like you can make up that fantasy production somewhere later in the draft. So I can certainly see why he would go with someone like Nick Foles, who, given the Chip Kelly offensive scheme, the weapons that he has around him, there is certainly the potential for this guy to have an absolute monster season. There's basically 2 diametrically opposed schools of thought here, and it could not be more on opposite sides. A lot of people think Nick Foles' performance is to some extent repeatable. He's obviously not going to have the touchdown to interception ratio again. That's superhuman. I don't believe that's achievable or attainable. But a lot of people think that this was an indicator of things to come, a great career from a young quarterback in a great situation. And I've actually seen some articles at RotoViz, I believe, written about how this guy has some monumental upside and what he did was sustainable. On the other side of the fence, there's a lot of doubters and a lot of people that feel that this is simply not the guy who is going to come back with a top 6 or 7 even fantasy performance among quarterbacks. And they think that it was a lot of luck. I will say, going back and watching some of his touchdown passes last year, there were a lot of poorly underthrown balls, just jump balls that were kind of thrown up there, that wide receivers had to come back on and they managed to take down. So he did look good at times. That's not to take away any of the good things that he did, but there were certainly some reasons to be concerned with his performance. And you have to think that if a couple of those balls fell a couple of different ways, he could have easily had a slightly worse to, just possibly a significantly worse season.
Yeah. So. I think what he's really got going for him is with Darren Sproles and LaShawn McCoy in the backfield, 2 great pass catchers. I think that he's actually going to be throwing a lot more passes this year than any other quarterback would in that system. So I think some carries will be taken away, so he'll have more opportunity for yardage this year, in my mind.
And I see some light-hearted back and forth going on. Project Roto, that's Nick saying, Dean, will you put the guns away, please? That picture is going to intimidate me into drafting Josh Harris. So there you have it right there. Watch for the Josh Harris pick. I would have thought you would have picked Teddy Bridgewater, to be honest, Nick. That's I thought that was your guy.
Consistency is key here.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Dean says, that picture is not quite representative of me. Sorry to disappoint. Don't sell yourself short, my friend. You look like the Hulk stunt double, dude. It's absolutely...
Lou Ferrigno.
You have no idea how excited I was when I came across that picture today. It was literally the highlight of my afternoon. So, Eagles Super Bowl bound, says Dan Russell. That's a lofty prediction. Not sure if I can get on board with that.
No.
Back into the fourth round, or I'm sorry, the early end of the fourth round, Andre Ellington, somebody I am higher and higher on as the coaching staff continues to talk about him being used in sort of a 20 to 25 touch per game role. I don't know if that's necessarily sustainable for the entire season, but look, he was explosive last year, and there was no running back that averaged more big plays opportunity-wise, percentage-wise, than Andre Ellington. I mean, this guy is a walking highlight reel waiting to happen.
Yeah, the only negative that I had about Andre Ellington last year is that he just didn't get enough touches, because how many times do we see him go 8 carries for 85 yards? Just a phenomenal number, but the volume wasn't there. So definitely with him adding some volume this year, he's just a terrific play.
Yeah, and another thing that is interesting about that is no more Rashard Mendenhall, no more reason for the regime to stay faithful to a dying horse.
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all. I think that was stubbornness more than anything last year.
Yep, but Doug Martin, another player that a lot of people are really, really just split over. Some people say they will not own him whatsoever. They feel that one mistake or slip-up, and he's got a plethora of running back by committee options there to take away all of his value. And a lot of people feel that he's just hands down the most talented player. And last season, the small portion of games he was managing to play before he got hurt were not representative of his true talent. I think probably the answer lies somewhere in the middle. I don't know that we'll see a 2012 Doug Martin again. That was a phenomenal rookie season. But I do think that he is a solid value in the fourth round, especially with the pass-catching ability. And you have to figure the offense this year with no Josh Freeman to start the year going to be a little bit better than previously. Yeah. T.Y. Hilton in the fourth round is interesting. Huge boom-bust play there. Must be a lot of faith in Peyton, not Peyton Manning, but Andrew Luck.
New Peyton Manning.
The new Peyton Manning. Hopefully the luck does not run out for T.Y. Hilton. Larry Fitzgerald at the end of the fourth. I think that's an extremely fair pick. And Shane Vereen going in the fifth. Definitely a pick that, not a head-scratcher, but something that wasn't on my radar. Look, I trust Josh more than just about anyone else. So it's going to be extremely interesting to see what kind of season Vereen has here. And it seems to me, with how high Josh drafted him, he's banking on Ridley riding the bench once again.
Yeah, and Vereen's a perfect guy for best ball, because how many times last year did we see him double-digit catches, couple touchdowns? So he's definitely the check-down option for Tom Brady in that offense, and without a lot of deep threats. I like Shane Vereen to have some really big games this year, too.
I like C.J. Spiller in the fifth, too, to Ryan Hodge. That is an absolute steal. I feel that C.J. Spiller wasn't healthy for the entire season. I think he tried to come back and play too many times. He probably should have sat out longer than he did, called it quits for a few more games. But I do think that C.J. Spiller has immense upside. One of the few players this far back in the draft that you can legitimately say might finish as a top 5 running back, or even top 5 at their position. Wouldn't be surprised if that happened with Spiller.
Yeah, no, Spiller is just a guy. Hopefully he's finally going to get his due and his certain amount of carries, because he's a guy like Ellington also, because he was splitting time. He produced a lot of times when he got opportunities, but other opportunities he just didn't get his chances. So you definitely like his upside. It's immense.
Yep. Moving on a little farther here, Percy Harvin going at the back end of the fifth round, and had a quote here. Did Percy Harvin get injured yet since we started drafting? Such a low blow. Such a low blow. Too far.
I don't know that anyone can confirm that. I'm guessing he's at home.
Yeah, I was going to say too far, my friend. Victor Cruz in the fifth round. Absolutely love that. I think that's a great pick. I expect him out of the slot this year to have much better success than the hodgepodge of an offense that the Giants threw out on the field last year. And looking at the sixth round here, Marcus Colston. What do you think about him this season?
Not a huge fan. I feel like Colston, he's still probably outside of Jimmy Graham, the top red zone option in that offense. But I don't know. With some new guys coming in, it's really hard to say, because it seems like Drew Brees just finds a way to get everybody involved. So I'm just wondering how much of a role he's still going to have in the offense at his age.
After 2 rounds without a tight end, Jordan Cameron off the board. Number 4, very, very high upside this season, especially with Johnny effing Football tossing the pigskin to him. Going to be real interesting, too, since last week we've heard more and more about Manziel being the first-round quarterback, running with the first team. And it's going to be interesting to see where he goes, because quarterbacks like him are valuable commodities in best ball, because, again, you don't have to try to figure out what weeks he's going to go off. You just get, the week he throws for 2 touchdowns, passes for 250 yards, runs for 50 yards, and scores a touchdown, you can just automatically have that in your lineup.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's, again, one of those guys, like you mentioned, you don't need him to be consistent every week in this format. These are the guys you need with huge upside, and he's definitely that guy.
Kendall Wright, another player that I absolutely love in PPR. If he can increase his touchdowns even slightly, he's going to be an absolute stud. Ryan Matthews continues to be slept on even after a solid season last year. I think people are still fearing the regression monster coming out to play. And Joique Bell and Reggie Bush going back-to-back. That's an interesting duo. Earlier this season, I think you saw Joique Bell going around the 7th, 6th round, and you saw Reggie Bush going around the 3rd and the 4th. They've evened out a little more now as people have become privy to the fact that Joique Bell is the between-the-tackle runner, and he's going to catch probably just as many, if maybe a few less, passes than Reggie Bush. So this is by no means a Reggie Bush dominant backfield any longer. This is a true split, and if this coaching regime is anything like the previous stops, they're going to rely on Joique Bell in between the tackles, and Reggie Bush just isn't good if he's not getting to the outside.
Yeah, and you've got to, with Joique Bell, he's going to get the majority of the goal line carries because he's more durable, he's a bigger back, he's more of a bruiser, so that definitely ups his chances right there. So he's going to be the touchdown guy in my mind over Bush.
Yep, I can see that. Pierre Thomas in the 7th round is an interesting pick as well. A lot of stuff, shenanigans maybe coming out of the New Orleans State camp. Have you heard the report that he's the number 3 running back behind Kyrie Robinson and Pierre Thomas?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I'm convinced about that yet. It's hard to say. Honestly, I'm trying to get a grip on this Saints offense. I don't know where they're going with it.
For 4 Josh saying that you guys are sleeping. Talk about how awesome my team is. Gotta be honest with you. Not a huge fan of a couple of your picks there. I wouldn't have said it otherwise, but you're calling me out for sleeping on your team here. So the Mike Wallace and the Andre Johnson picks I could have probably done without. But listen, you're the expert, not me. I'm just the commentator, all right? Don't shoot me.
Yeah. Hey, Mike Wallace about as boom bust as they come. So best ball format, all he needs is one of those 80-yard touchdown catches, and he can just kind of sit back the rest of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, taking a look at the action that's gone on, a couple of interesting players off the board. Golden Tate going in the 7th round. People are finally starting to wisen up. This is the first true secondary talent that Calvin Johnson has had opposite of him. Yep. There's a lot of guys that have tried to fill the role. Titus Young, Ryan Broyles, Nate Burleson. Lots of guys that have been thrown into that role and just haven't been too talented.
Yep.
Golden Tate, I am so excited to see him get a chance this year to be in an offense that might utilize his talents. And just to be opposite of Calvin Johnson should allow his big play ability to shine through.
Yeah, and that's what worries me a little bit about Calvin Johnson, just because there's finally someone to take the catches when Calvin Johnson's covered. And like you said, a reliable guy. So I think Golden Tate's in line for a really big year. It looks to me like a fancy trade 401 over here is just crushing this draft, if you ask me.
Yeah, I got to say, if I'm picking a winner right now, it's Nick Ride-A-Canoe, as I like to call him. And I think his team is the best, except for that Le'Veon Bell pick. Yeah, that was pretty awful. But other than that, if you could have got Stack Stacy or Giovanni Bernard falling to you, your team would have just been the absolute nuts. But as it stands right now, I think I like yours the best as far as an upside is concerned. But I like all these teams. Obviously, we're not getting into the nitty-gritty rounds yet that are really going to determine who wins this draft. It may seem boring to a lot of people, but I find the backside of best ball drafts so interesting because it's the players you get in the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th round. Those are the guys that make your team. If somebody like a Devonta Freeman ends up stealing that role from an ailing Steven Jackson, it's going to be the person with him on their team that has a huge advantage over the field. And likewise, all these other lottery ticket type players. And it's all about basically just finding the top lottery ticket. That actually takes me to a story. I worked in convenience stores for 5 years before I got into fantasy sports. And there were people that would come in and claim that they can actually read the numbers on the Ohio Lottery website to determine which games were likely to hit relative to how many of the tickets had been sold and how many of the prizes had actually been paid out. So people would come into the convenience stores and they would ask what number the ticket rolls were on.
I've heard that.
Yeah, and they would try to use that as a way to decide whether or not they're going to buy lottery tickets.
It's delusional.
So that's my roundabout way of saying that's kind of what's going on, only with actual skill involved once we get into these later rounds. I also like Dan Russell saying something to the effect of, "I'm impressed Gaby sounds on point." Is that because you expected me to be a train wreck? I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
It's still a compliment, so you take it.
Such a backhanded compliment. Absolutely love it. 444 Josh says I'm the worst commentator ever just because I won't bow down before the greatness of his team. Look, man, I'm going to need to see some more upside. It's your pick. Who you taking? Impress me. You're on the clock. I can't think. I don't even want to talk about anything else. I just want to see who he's taking right here. Oh, man. Who's he going to take? Who is he going to draft? 26 seconds left. He's digging. You know he's trying to find something extra special here so he can impress me.
Oh, yeah. He's going to dig real deep, I bet.
He is.
He's going to go with one of the guys you mentioned as the late lottery ticket. If you ask me, that's where he's going.
Yep. And coming down the wire here, who's he going to take? Who's he going to go with?
He knows. He's just toying
I know.
with you.
He's just trying to toy with me. He's trying to make this suspenseful. Terrence Williams. Okay.
Hey, he should be the number 2.
Yeah.
That's Bryant there in Dallas.
Yeah.
And we all know Tony Romo throws the ball and scrambles around and finds whoever's open. And Terrence Williams, one of those guys, he's quick. He runs good routes. So I like him this year. I think that's a pretty solid upside pick. So I'll give credit there. I don't know. He might hate you and not want your credit, but I'll give him some.
Yeah, I like it. And Cal making a great point. Says would be great if they build out weekly best ball scoring here. He would play a ton of these instead of MFL 10s. I feel the same way as well. I would absolutely love to see that someday. I would be a sucker for these, especially right after the NFL draft. We can't help but play some fantasy football all year long. So let's go ahead and now that we're coming to sort of these middle rounds, let's do a little bit of an evaluation period. And let's go through each team and talk about some of the strengths and the weaknesses. Let's start with AM5160. That is Tony Moriello. And you got to love what he did the first 3 rounds. Again, Jordy Nelson and Keenan Allen backed up with Jamal Charles. Extremely strong. I do feel a little put off by the Matthew Stafford in the 5th round. I think that might be a little early. But if he has the upside type season that he's had in the past, not last year, but in years past, that could certainly be a payoff pick. I could see him easily as a top 3 fantasy quarterback. My issue with him is the happy feet.
Yep.
Matthew Stafford and happy feet have become synonymous. He just hasn't taken the time to master his footwork, and that's really all it is. Footwork is something you have to work at. You've got to be on the field 2-3 hours a day working with your quarterback's coach and figuring out exactly where your feet need to be to the point it becomes muscle memory. So it's going to be interesting if he's getting to that point now. Quarterbacks last a long time, longer than other position players, but he's getting to that point where he needs to start doing something here soon.
Yeah, I actually really like him now because he finally, like we said earlier, he finally has some protection. He has multiple reliable options, and even if Reggie Bush doesn't stay healthy, which who knows if he really will, he's not all that durable, but then he's still got Joey Bell. So I think that Stafford's in line for a good year.
And 444 Josh does say he was about to shock the world before he made that pick, so he was right on target with that. And Cal Spears with the obvious. Terrence Williams? Silence. Okay. Okay. Yes. We couldn't contain our enthusiasm. Let's go to, since we already talked about 444 Josh's team. Oh, and the Seahawks D coming off the woohoo in the 9th round. Wow. And Frank Gore in the 9th round. That's absolutely silly. Roto Hobo Ryan Hodge just got Frank Gore in the 9th round. Usur just got the pick of the draft, in my opinion. That is the pick of the draft. Let's talk about Bills fans team. Matt Forte, obviously a great pick, best ball, or any format really, but PPR especially. Rob Gronkowski, if he stays healthy, going to be great. I think he's a little weak at wide receiver is my issue here. I do think that maybe waiting a little longer on a quarterback might have went great for him because by going with a tight end in the 2nd round, at least in my opinion, how I see this draft playing out, it's really limited his ability to have that elite number 1 overall wide receiver upside. T.Y. Hilton, boom-bust type play, good for best ball, but not going to be your week-in, week-out guy. And then you've got Julian Edelman, Emmanuel Sanders, and an unknown in Sammy Watkins. Certainly a couple of PPR monsters there with Edelman and Sanders, but a lot of unproven, unsustainable things, or at least questions about their sustainability. So I do feel a little weak at wide receiver, but I like the direction that it's going in.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Edelman just because Tom Brady just loves this guy so much, and at Tom Brady's declining age, I mean, production aside, who knows what he's really going to do this year? Everyone has differing opinions, but you feel like Edelman's the guy who's going to get his targets. He's going to get catches, and he's got some pretty damn good hands in the end zone despite his size. So
yeah,
Brady seems to be able to find him. So I like Edelman a lot.
Dean, 78904, Adrian Peterson, Peyton Manning, Marshawn Lynch, a very strong, like we said, 2013 non-PPR team. Very good picks in the first couple rounds. Like, I have no issue with that. It's all fun and games, Dean. Those are actually great picks. Marshawn Lynch towards the middle of the third round, definitely a steal. Roddy White in the fourth round. If you're expecting the Roddy White of old to be back, this is certainly a great PPR pick because he is definitely more of a possession receiver than ever in his advanced age. Michael Crabtree, definitely somebody, a lot of question marks surrounding him. Rashad Jennings basically has the job all to himself now. So, certainly a high upside pick there. Torrey Smith and Ray Rice, a couple of teammates. Torrey Smith, great for best ball, definitely a boom-bust type option. And Ray Rice, screw that guy. Greg Olsen, great tight end there in the 9th round. I think Olsen has phenomenal upside this season. So always a guy that really sneaks up on you, but ends up being a great play.
Yeah, and Torrey Smith, a guy like Mike Wallace, where he's the down the field threat. So Joe Flacco's at least going to try 2 of them down the field to him a game, and one of those weeks he catches both, then you're in line for a real big day.
Ryan Hodge, I love his team here so far. The C.J. Spiller pick in the 5th round and the Frank Gore pick in the 9th round, just making my day over here. Absolutely love it. In my opinion, one of the strongest teams on the board right now. He's got upside at every position right now outside of tight end, who he has noticeably waited on. I can't help but wonder if he's waiting back for a couple of guys like a Ladarius Green, perhaps a Zach Ertz type player. Some of these guys with a lot of upside, you pick up 2 or 3 of them and hope that you can just mix and match solid weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Johnny Rumford, loved how he started. The first 5 picks to me are among the first 5 most solid picks in this draft. Jordan Cameron in the 6th round, I like that. I'm not going to say it was a reach. I don't know if I like Jordan Cameron over some of the other talent that was being taken in the 6th round. But look, again, I'm the analyst, the commentator. I'm not the expert. I'm just saying it like I see it. Definitely a chance compared to some of these guys and their opinions that I'm wrong. I do like the Cam Newton pickup in the 7th round. I feel like the hate for Newton has got a little out of hand with, he has no weapons and his ankle might be bothering him. Look, this is just a guy, all he does is finish in the top 5 of fantasy QBs every year. That's all he does. Every year, just finishes in the top 5.
Yeah.
Just goes to work.
And without any weapons, really.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't, if you want to count Steve Smith, I guess, but I don't consider him a good wide receiver. He's above average, but, he's a guy who just gets it done. Yeah. I really like Brandon Cooks there. I think Brandon Cooks is in line for a huge year. I think he's going to be the guy in my mind that's going to eventually, whether it's this year or further down the road, he's going to be the guy that supplants Marquez Colston as that go-to guy at wide receiver in New Orleans.
Yeah, definitely another. To me, that's another one of those picks of the draft type plays. Could really turn out to be phenomenal in the end. Michael Gallagher, so like I said, starting off strong with Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, Giovanni Bernard. A little questionable with the Nick Foles pick, but look, if you believe he's your guy, that's what fantasy football drafting is all about. If you believe he's your guy, you put your head down and you take him because you know he might not be there when it comes time to draft again. So sometimes you reach for the guy you love. If Gallagher loves Foles, then God bless him. That was a solid pick. Toby Gerhart looking more and more like he's just going to be the bell cow every single week. And certainly a guy that probably doesn't have a lot of upside, but if he can fall into a couple of touchdowns, and that Jacksonville offensive line wasn't as bad as people thought it was last year. It was really just the offense. It was really just the Blaine Gabbert / Chad Henne effect that made that team so god-awful. Justin Blackmon deciding he couldn't stay off the toke for very long. So I like Toby Gerhart's chances, and some very, I think, solid, if not spectacular picks, rounding out 6th, 7th, and 8th round for him. But I love the Bernard Pierce pick in the 9th round. I think if Pierce runs well these first 2 weeks, there's a chance Ray Rice doesn't get his starting job back, and he becomes the backup.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that as well. I think that Pierce deserves that job. Off-field issues aside, I mean, was just a better runner last year. Obviously, that's not the greatest offensive line, but I just think that he's the better talent right now.
Yeah. Looking at Nick Raducanu's team, we already talked about how much we like it. I love the Joik Bell in the 6th round pick. I love Golden Tate in the 7th round. And Andrew Luck in the 8th round feels about right. Stephen Ridley, a fine lottery ticket in the 9th round, although if I had to bet, I'm going to bet against him. One thing I do like, though, is the fact that you can get Stephen Ridley in the 9th, whereas you're taking Shane Vereen in the 5th or the 6th. So It's a good high upside pick. You're hedging against Shane Vereen's injury history, and Stephen Ridley has been the guy before, and he's been great.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, as long as he stays on that short leash, because we all know that Belichick likes to get real upset if he puts the ball on the ground. I've seen a couple times where he put it on the ground, didn't even turn it over, and still got pulled. So if he holds onto the ball, he could definitely pay off for you.
John Paulson's team looking strong. A bit of an unconventional start with Jimmy Graham, Antonio Brown, and Aaron Rodgers, but 3 very solid week in, week out guys. Not a lot of up and down with them. You know what you're going to get, and it's a very solid performance. Maybe setting himself up to take the high-risk upside guys later in the draft, just building a solid foundation here. And I'm very interested to I had a talk with John earlier, actually, where he was wanting to know some of the specifics of the format just because he said that rankings varied a lot depending on the settings of the league. So. Yeah. I'm very interested to watch his draft, and I love the Victor Cruz pick in the 5th round. Absolutely love it. Eric Decker in the 7th. People are crazy low on him. And Kelvin Benjamin, from all reports, looking phenomenal out there for Carolina right now. You talk about Cam Newton not having weapons in the past, or not having weapons this year. If you thought Steve Smith was a weapon previously, you were smoking something, because he was nothing last year. Kelvin Benjamin, a young guy a physical specimen, if he could come in and make some noise, could definitely get something done. And our last drafter here, Grinders Cal, looking at his first 9-pick recap here. Monty Ball, Des Bryant, Arian Foster. Arian Foster, a lot of question marks have caused him to fall precipitously low in drafts. But I like how he's backed it up with Andre Ellington right afterwards. So a lot of high upside running back stuff going on. And grabbing Percy Harvin, another high upside pick in the 5th round. And then Wes Welker, a little more consistency. Maybe not the upside of the past when he was the bell cow for the New England Patriots offense. But Jeremy Maclin, I've also heard reports about him absolutely torching the defense in practice so far this year. So, if Jeremy Maclin is truly back, people forget because he has been struggling with injury for so long. This guy was a legitimate top 15, top 20 wide receiver being drafted that way when he was healthy. So I think that could be a solid steal as well. Trent Richardson, it's a fine gamble in the 8th round. And Dennis Pitta, very solid tight end. So that is the first 9 rounds, kind of how we're evaluating the teams. We're going to move on down here and just go ahead and look at what they've been doing since then. All right. Bear with me for a moment, ladies.
Josh Gordon.
Yeah, here we go. So we had our Josh Gordon sighting. So it looks like Carlos Hyde coming off the board in the 10th. That's interesting to me. A lot of people think that he should have been the Bishop Sankey this year. They think that the Tennessee Titans should have taken him, and I'm inclined to agree. I think the Titans made a mistake with Sankey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not completely sure what to think with Hyde. I know watching him in Columbus for the time at Ohio State, he was a guy he was a big bruising back. He'd run over anybody, but his concern was you saw him a lot of times. I think his fitness was a concern because you'd see him a lot of times asking to come to the bench after a couple of long runs, and it just seemed like, hopefully he's got himself into some great shape now in the NFL, and he can keep that up. But he's a Marshawn Lynch type of bruising back, so I definitely like his potential.
Yep. I'm looking at some of these other picks that we had in this round. Jordan Reed, somebody that I absolutely love this season. Tight end out of Washington. I think he's got a legitimate shot at finishing in the top 5 of a much better chance than a lot of other guys. And this may be sacrilege. I like him much more than Ladarius Green. A lot of people love Ladarius Green this year, winning the same round here. I could not be higher on Jordan Reed, and I could not be more undecided on Ladarius Green.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Ladarius Green. It remains to be seen with, how much he's actually going to be targeted in that offense because there is plenty to go around. But, I mean, he's a guy who you would not be shocked to see him go up and just put up a 0, goose egg. But, like I said, in the best ball format, you want the guys with the high upside, and he does have that. I just don't know about consistency at all with him this year.
Yep, I'm there with you on that one. Robert Griffin III. This right here is a perfect example of why the late round QB strategy works. My hat is tipped to Cal for that one because that is an absolute steal. If you cannot see Robert Griffin III finishing as a top 3 fantasy quarterback this year, then you did not see what he did the first season, and you did not understand just how bothered he was coming back from injury last year with all of the issues he had with coaching staff, with his own health, with some of the deficiencies on offense. This year should be a brand new year for the young gun, and I am expecting huge things out of him. That is a steal in the 10th round.
Yeah, and then with the whole speculation where they knew he was injured and threw him back in and everything,
yeah,
it seems like he's finally back and his confidence is there because if he doesn't have his legs underneath him, he is just not the same player. Yeah. So definitely huge upside there.
The Vernon Davis pick, definitely a tale of wasted ability because this guy is a phenomenal talent, perhaps the best athlete at the tight end position in the league, or just overall pure athlete. And he just time after time is asked to stay home and block for that offense, and they simply do not utilize him. Every year we hope he's going to be, a featured weapon in that offense, and every year it ends up disappointing us. He has those flashes of brilliance for a game or two, and then after that, it's, where did he go? So I think he is a very solid best ball pick, but it's understandable why he fell to the 11th round, even after guys like Ladarius Green and Jordan Reed. And frankly, I would rather have Jordan Reed than Vernon Davis. I don't know about Ladarius Green. I might rather have Vernon Davis over him. But
yeah, my thought on Vernon Davis is it seems like when he produces the most is once the Niners make the playoffs, he becomes a lot of the focal point, and it just makes me realize that they really don't see his value. So that's the concern there. Obviously, like you said, the talent's there. It's always been there. It's just whether or not he's actually going to, be a big enough part of that offense to pay off for you.
With that Carlos Hyde pick, it kind of signified the onslaught of handcuffs, running back handcuffs, pure handcuffs, guys that would really take over if the situation merited. And so we see a couple interesting ones that have come off the board here in the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. You've got, first of all, Devonta Freeman, who has been compared to a person running with their ass on fire, is what I've heard out of the Falcons camp. So a lot of things to be excited about there. Kyrie Robinson could take this starting job in New Orleans, and he could run away with it. That Kyrie Robinson pick is a steal in the 12th round. And the Christine Michael pick is absolutely phenomenal from an upside standpoint. That guy, all the talent in the world, has just had some off-field troubles that helped to put him in a spot where he wasn't contributing right away. But Lynch is either done at some point this year when he gets an injury or quits on the team, or he's out of there after this next season, which is one of the reasons he fell so low in drafts.
Yeah. Devonta Freeman, especially with those guys, I really don't see any way that he doesn't become the guy there, because I'm not a believer in Steven Jackson. Not only is he not durable, but he looks so slow now. I mean, he's fortunate to still be in a starting position at all right now.
And I think it's telling that he goes one round before his backup.
Yep.
So that, dealing with a hamstring issue, which from all accounts I've heard is not as serious as the hamstring issue he dealt with last year, but still, anytime a hamstring is involved for a skill position player, you hold your breath.
Yeah.
Because the season can be done very quickly at that point.
Yeah, and that's like what happened with Arian Foster. I mean, the last couple of years, he was arguably the top pick, at least the top 5 pick, and then now he's dropping to the 3rd round because you really don't know. He could have that hamstring injury where you think he's out for the rest of the game, and then you miss him for 6 weeks. So he's another one of those guys where that's a concern, but obviously the upside's there.
Jordan Matthews going in the 12th round, another interesting play. A lot of people are very high on Jordan Matthews this year. They think that the sky is the limit for him in that offense. And frankly, despite the fact that a bunch of money, a pile of money was dumped on Riley Cooper's plate, Jordan Matthews actually has better cumulative numbers over his college career than Riley Cooper does in his NFL career. And that should tell you everything you need to know about how he is actually going to challenge Cooper for this job.
Yeah, I absolutely think that. And I don't think that Riley Cooper's skill set really sets him apart from Jordan Matthews, because you mentioned some of those passes from Nick Foles just kind of seemed a little errant and underthrown, and it seemed to me that Riley Cooper was the beneficiary of, right place, right time, where he just kind of adjusted accordingly. So I think Jordan Matthews definitely in a pass-happy offense and in line for some big numbers.
Something interesting, too, about Riley Cooper, if Jordan Matthews takes his starting job, does he want to fight him?
Hopefully.
I was going to say, he'll fight everyone. That's what he said.
I'm sure we would all love to see that, too.
God, that cutoff flannel. Man.
Insane.
Andre Williams, another high upside pick like him. Malcolm Floyd could end up being a steal right here as well. If he could ever stay healthy, everything I've seen out of Chargers camp says that he actually looks good this year.
Yeah.
It looks like he did when he was younger. This is a deep threat, a guy who really plays to some of Phillip Rivers' strengths. Phillip Rivers loves to air it out. I could easily see Malcolm Floyd having a solid season at that ADP, right around 12.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I see Darren McFadden, the guy, another one of those guys. Injury concerns always seems to be an injury concern, and always on the list each week, a questionable tag, something of that nature, and you never really know how long he's going to be out. But when he's on the field, he has always produced. So you got to like his chance there. He now has to battle for his job, but I think if he's healthy, he's got a good chance.
Yeah, I think so as well. A lot of kickers flying off the board here now. Johnny Manziel in the 14th round, along with Russell Wilson, both very high upside quarterbacks in best ball. They have, Russell Wilson has proven he can have some solid weeks, but definitely not the guy you want to be starting every week. Jonathan Grimes, another solid backup. He's basically been named the starter after Andre Brown was surprisingly cut from the Houston Texans. And James Jones, another boom-bust play out there for Matt Schwab to wing it out to. Going to be someone extremely interesting this season. We're going to see if it was just Aaron Rodgers or if this is actually sustainable.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys in a good spot. It really depends on Schwab, like you said, because I think that the talent's there with Jones, but it just remains to be seen how much he'll be used in that offense and if Schwab can get the job done, because we saw him struggle a lot last year.
Yep, exactly. Delaney Walker, another interesting tight end, had a couple of weeks last year in a row where he was a touchdown machine, so certainly somebody with some upside there. Talked about Marcus Wheaton earlier in the draft, somebody that has to step up this season. The Steelers need somebody else to come out of the woodwork, take some pressure off of Big Ben and Le'Veon Bell. And Marcus Wheaton, he certainly has the physical capabilities. It's really just going to be if he can put together the route running and get everything together to become a complete package. It's been a couple of seasons now. Can he do it? I'm not sure, but it's going to be interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, Pittsburgh has had a hell of a time being able to get some reliable 2 and 3 guys there at the wide receiver position over the past couple of years. So it'll definitely be interesting to see if they can develop Wheaton into something productive or if they're going to have to go back to the draft again next year.
Tavon Austin coming off the board in the 15th, a solid upside pick right there. Phillip Rivers, a steal in the 15th round in my opinion. Excellent backup quarterback, and he's got some weapons. Ladarius Green, Antonio Gates on his last legs, Keenan Allen. For Davis Maddox's sake, I should probably mention Vincent Brown. Anybody who knows Maddox will understand the reference there. Trey Mason coming off the board, a high upside handcuff to Zach Stacy. Potentially could see some time if Stacy, who runs very hard, straight into opposing players. So you figure he's going to miss a game or two with an ailment of some sort.
Yeah, definitely. He's a similar type of back, too, just a little bit smaller. So definitely like his upside. You saw what he was doing against some SEC defenses, so got to like his chances there.
Yep, Aaron Dobson. A lot of people got very high on Aaron Dobson this week, feeling like he is a high boom-bust sleeper. He could end up being Tom Brady's preferred target this year outside of Julian Edelman. So on the outside, you could have Dobson running those deep routes and catching a lot of across-the-middle type stuff deeper into the field.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that was targeted before last year, and you never knew what you were going to get. I mean, there was high expectations then, so hopefully now he absolutely lives up to all those.
Yep, and Aaron Dobson, or not Aaron Dobson, my apologies, but Cecil Shorts, somebody who I think is also being criminally underdrafted, a player who has had some real top 20 upside before in PPR leagues with some bad quarterbacks throwing the ball to him. And I could easily see if he gets healthy again, I could easily see him come out and be the type of player that he was before. So that could be a steal in the 14th round.
Yeah, and he's the guy now there with Justin Blackman, for whatever reason, just kind of throwing his career away there. So got to like Cecil Shorts. He's a deep ball threat kind of guy, but he goes over the middle a little bit too. So definitely a guy that we're excited about here too. Ben Roethlisberger, guy that he's going to put up some numbers. He's going to need that guy. He's going to need a Marcus Wheaton to step up, but he's a guy that just seems to just get it done. He puts up numbers every week, every year. So fantasy-wise, I wanted to say was he top 5 in yards last year? I know he was top 10, and under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. Doug Baldwin, another player that I absolutely love. I think that this is going to be his year to shine. I think that they're going to be a little kinder to Percy Harvin. They're not going to try to make him a workhorse. They frankly don't need him to be. And I could see Baldwin with no more Golden Tate in the situation, certainly stepping up. He was someone I liked to target on some weeks, minimum value, big play guy, kind of a home run hitter. One swing is all it takes. And really, really like the Maurice Jones-Drew pick here in the 15th round. Great value to get somebody who projects as possibly the opening day starter for the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, and one guy I really like is Brian Hartline. He's a volume kind of receiver. He doesn't have terrific speed or anything like that, but he's a guy that's just always consistent, kind of gets it done. He had a huge game one time last year, and we think Ryan Tannehill, the guy that should be definitely putting up some numbers this year, hopefully becoming the quarterback that we all thought he might be.
Yep. I like the Mark Ingram pick as well. That job in New Orleans is pretty much anybody's to grab at this point. Mark Ingram is interesting because he's had some opportunity, but a lot of people don't realize this guy's still really young. He's a highly heralded prospect, and he doesn't have much mileage on his body. All that stuff equates to a highly valuable asset.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, as far as pure runner, I do think that he's the best runner of any of those backs. A lot of those guys are better out of the backfield catching balls and things like that, but I do think Mark Ingram is the best pure runner there. So if he can solidify himself there, I don't think he'll ever be the clear-cut number one, only because New Orleans likes to spread it out. So other guys will still get chances, but you like his chances maybe as the goal line back too.
Yep. Brian Hartline, always sort of an underappreciated PPR star.
Yeah.
Carson Palmer and Andy Dalton, a couple of high upside backups coming off the board here. So kind of what you expect in these later rounds. People try to take their lottery quarterback who could potentially cash in big from a week-to-week standpoint. And Kenny Britt coming off the board is a solid pick. I hear that actually in St. Louis, if he can stay healthy, a lot of people don't realize, I think he's only like 25 or 26 years old. For as much as Kenny Britt rhetoric that we've heard over the years, and as many injuries as he's suffered, he's still phenomenally young and a player who has all the physical makeup to be a star in this league. It really just is going to depend on staying healthy and putting it together mentally. That's been his issue. So I like that a lot because he might get the chance to be the number one. Who else is going to be the number one over him in St. Louis? They just don't have anyone. Tavon Austin? It's not happening.
Yeah, no, Tavon Austin's never going to be the 10, 12 catch it a game kind of guy. So Kenny Britt, definitely huge upside there.
Yep. So
see,
have some trolling going on. Yeah. Cal and Project Roto, Cal and Nick commiserating over my troll ability. Look, you fools! I'm the one who. It's like Walt White from Breaking Bad. I am the one who trolls. Not you, me. See, Dean says, my mistake. Good thing I started strong. Yeah, you have to click the View Full Draft button to see your picks after round 14. It's a software limitation that we have right now, but we're going through to 20 rounds. Dino, if you would have listened to me earlier, I only said it like 75 times, but hey, that's what a guy with giant muscles like that does. He doesn't listen to what other people say because guess what? They don't have giant muscls.
He makes his own rules.
That's right. He makes his own rules. He's a lone wolf. He's an unknown quantity. He's a wild card.
He's the Charlie Kelly.
I like the Jarrett Boykin pick as well. Always solid to bet on a backup who could step into a big role if injury were to take place and have Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, especially someone who's proven it before.
Yeah, I really like Hakeem Nicks. I think he's the steal in the 16th round. A guy that's disappointed over the past few seasons due to some injuries and things like that, but the dude has enormous hands. He's a great possession receiver, and you got to love that. As weird as it may sound.
That's okay. Look, I'm sure you have a private book with pictures of all the wide receivers in the NFL's hands,
and his book is bigger than the rest.
Yeah, I was gonna say you like to
pop-up book.
You like to crack that bad boy open and take a peek-see every now and then. I get it. Robert Woods, a good upside pick in the 16th round. Marvin Jones, people were super high on him earlier, and you've got this forlorn look on your face right now, Justin.
Yep. I'm very disappointed in that injury. I'm just hoping Andy Dalton can keep it together until he comes back. He's not a huge part of the offense, but they were definitely starting to click near the end of last season. I mean, he had that 4-touchdown game. Definitely a huge upside guy. Absolutely worth a roster spot there with his potential.
Andy Dalton?
I mean, Andy Dalton should put up numbers this year. He has no reason at all not to put up numbers other than if he just doesn't do it. He's got weapons, 2 tight ends that are good. He's got weapons at running back. He's got wide receivers.
The Ginger Ninja.
Yeah, the Ginger Ninja. No one to blame but himself if he doesn't have a great year.
Gingers don't blame themselves. They don't have souls.
Well, why blame yourself?
Yeah,
who are you going to answer to?
Cardinals defense off the board. That was kind of a sleeper one. I really like the Cardinals defense this year.
So. Yeah, they're in line. They're underappreciated. I think a lot of the reason being that they're in that division with the Seahawks and Niners, who are obviously 2 of the best, if not the best in the NFL. So definitely an underappreciated D there.
Yep. Ryan Tannehill, an excellent pick right there. A lot of upside. A lot of people are very high on the Miami Dolphins offense, and I feel like we've been on this carousel before with Lamar Miller and such. I'm not a huge fan for what it's worth, but a lot of people are.
Yeah.
So
it remains to be seen if Ryan Tannehill is going to win games, in my opinion. But I do think he'll eventually start putting up numbers. Maybe this is the year. I guess we'll see.
Yep. I think so as well. Roy Halou Jr., another high upside running back. And you have to figure if this offense gets back to a high octane pace that it was before, there could easily be room for Halou Jr. and Alfred Morris to coexist together. And Halou, of course, in the PPR best ball type format, he's had a couple of monster games in his career. Probably not good for more than one or two monster games, but it's PPR best ball. One or two monster games is what you're looking for in the 17th round.
Yeah.
Just a guy who can win you a week or two here and there.
Yeah, those are the only guys you should really be looking at this late because there's no point in taking the guys that are going to get you a few points each week. You want the guys that can step in and just take over a game, and he's that guy.
Tyler Eifert coming off the board here. Is this the year he steps up? Because this guy is a heralded prospect.
Yeah, I absolutely think that, he should be the number one in my mind. I think Jermaine Gresham has had so many chances to be that guy. He's proven to be unreliable. He drops too many passes.
Yeah.
He seems to be out of position a lot. He's a good blocker, but he doesn't have good hands. And Tyler Eifert, big, strong, fast. He should do it.
Do you have pictures of his hands, just out of curiosity?
I have some pictures of Tyler Eifert. Yes.
All right. I love the Niall Davis pick right there. Niall Davis has a great path to a great situation should Jamar Charles go down. And at this point, you're not hoping that anybody goes down, but you certainly are planning for the worst. And taking a guy like Niall Davis puts you in a great position to be the benefactor of an unfortunate scenario.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of bad backups out there, and he's not one of them, though. So you want to get the backup that can step in and actually produce, not just fill in for a week or two.
Yep. Sean Green in the 17th round also seems a little bit of a steal. I don't like saying Sean Green is a steal because, frankly, Sean Green is not good. But, I mean, are we really sold that Sankey's going to be the every down back? And being a rookie, very easy that he comes in there, makes a couple of mistakes, and he is on the bench for 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. So, look, a workhorse back is a workhorse back, and a potential workhorse back that might not even need an injury to move into the starting lineup or to have the job all to himself, essentially, that's a pretty good deal for the 17th round.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. See, we have a rush on the high upside late quarterbacks. Again, really just solidifying the late round QB strategy in best ball. Take 3 of them and just play whatever one has the best score each week.
Yeah.
You throw together a theoretical lineup of Robert Griffin III, Jake Locker, and let's say Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Let's say you have those 3. Not great. Most of the time, Robert the Griffin III is going to be your leader, but there's going to be a couple of weeks when Jake Locker is going to go off, or Joe Flacco is going to go off with a couple touchdown passes to Torrey Smith.
Yeah.
And those are the weeks that you're just happy you took these kind of middling guys in the later rounds.
Yep.
So
I really like Harry Douglas there, especially with the injury concerns at wide receiver in Atlanta.
Both of them.
Yeah. If either one of those guys goes down, or both, hopefully not, but Harry Douglas is filled in very nicely. So in the 18th round there, you figure more often than not one of them is going to get hurt. He's going to step in and get a lot of chances.
And I see a couple guys saying they had a good time. Cal and Nick, good. Glad to have you guys here. This is a lot of fun. Yeah, and that's kind of the deal is that these go quick. They take about an hour to get through the entire thing, and this would be great as like a best ball format if you could just draft these teams here at Draft Day and leave them there all year long and just keep building up more and more teams. $10 a pop, $25 a pop.
Yeah.
I draft so many of these teams.
Oh yeah.
It would be so much fun. And yeah, the best part is, again, takes like an hour to do. So not too hard to just take an hour out of your day and pop one of these bad boys out. Get a little practice in, too.
Yeah.
Everybody's still got season-long NFL drafts that they're in. I don't care how big of a daily person you are. You might have cut season-long fantasy baseball and basketball out of your repertoire. You didn't cut season-long fantasy football out. Nobody does.
No.
Nobody completely gets away from their first league that started 10 years ago, and they're the commissioner or the co-commissioner, and nobody gets away from those leagues.
Yep.
So.
And this definitely, even for the viewers and myself included, you gotta love seeing the strategy and where people are going and the different types of strategies. That's what I love seeing. I am getting myself some nice intel here.
Oh, I won't lie. I feel like I'm stealing. We've got some of the 10 top fantasy minds in the industry. Maybe not top fantasy football minds. Dean, just kidding. Just kidding. I kid. We've got 10 top fantasy minds in the industry here doing a draft for us, basically showing us their game plan, showing us their playbook. I mean, how could you not love this, right? I feel like I'm stealing. I'm getting free advice.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely phenomenal. We do appreciate it. Just as much as you appreciate being here, guys, we appreciate all of you taking the time to come out and do this. It's absolutely been a great time. And 4 for 4 Josh with the Josh Harris pick. There he is. 19th round. Tons of upside.
You knew it was coming.
Nose for the ball. Hustles in practice. Plays faster than his speed. What else can we come up with here? He's clutch.
Potential. Yeah, that's my favorite word.
Lots of potential. The coaching staff really likes him.
Yeah.
So
he really wants to do well.
Yeah,
he strives to succeed.
All right, so we've got some interesting last guys coming up the board. Heath Miller, a solid backup tight end to supplement whatever you picked up earlier in the draft. Josh McCown, we saw last year, has some upside. He definitely doesn't have a lack of weapons. He's got some great wide receiver options out there in Tampa Bay. Rod Streeter, a very high upside player as well, had some great weeks last week.
Yeah.
Or last year, not last week. And James White. Look, if you're going to play running back roulette in New England, you might as well. Why not? Stephen Ridley's a guy that's proven to be unreliable in the past. You got to figure one fumble from Stephen Ridley, he might be off the team.
Oh, yeah. Bill Belichick doesn't mess around. He says, hey, who's next? Get in. So you got to definitely take a chance with as many of these guys as you can, especially in this format.
Jericho Cotchery, that is a slam dunk pick in the last round. This is a guy who obviously overperformed with the touchdown dependency last year, but look, he's one of the lone guys in Carolina that actually understands how to play in an NFL game and isn't learning on the job. So, hell, I'll take him. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He was a pretty solid touchdown scorer last year, so usually not a huge guy for yardage, but he's a good red zone target for sure.
And Cal had a little bit of jeering at Dean earlier, said his upside and his downside is fifth. Cannot go anywhere. Stuck. Mired in mediocrity should be the team name for this one. As we approach the end of the draft, want to thank all of you who stuck around and watched. And of course, this is going to be posted up after the fact as well. We'll spiff it up with a nice post. We'll post it at fantasysportslive.com. And of course, we would appreciate it, all of our drafters, if you wouldn't mind maybe tweeting this out, spreading some of the love to some of your followers. And we feel like it would be a great learning tool for them as well. You can show them some of your tricks of your trade. And if you're Dean, you can show them exactly how they should have drafted last year. So they'll definitely love that. Hindsight being 20/20 and everything is a great way to run it.
Yeah.
I kid too, by the way. I like Dean's team quite a bit, to be completely honest. So last pick of the draft, who's it going to be? I'm going to go with who's going to be Mr. Irrelevant. Let's see who it was. Let's go back here. Geno Smith. All right, I would have never picked that. No, I like Geno this year. I think he's a great best ball play. But
no, he's a great best ball play. Perfect Mr. Irrelevant for me.
Yeah, perfect Mr. Irrelevant. All right, folks. Well, we hope you enjoyed this. It was a great time here. We will be back again next week. That is the 21st of August. We're going to have two more of these, the 21st and the 28th. And then, of course, the Thursday after that is the kickoff of the NFL season. So the whole point is we want you to feel prepared and we want to have a little fun doing it. That's why we do these little things. So until then, take care, folks. Peace out.